My name is Vanessa Logan. I was in the courthouse bathroom, adjusting my plain black blazer, when my brother's voice carried down the marble hallway. At least she won't humiliate us by showing up in some ridiculous costume this time. The ridiculous costume he meant was my U.S. Marshal uniform, the one I wore to our grandfather's funeral 6 months earlier. My family had labeled it an attention-grabbing stunt, claiming I wore my security guard outfit to look important during a solemn event. But today was different. This was my nephew's custody hearing, and my brother James had specifically told me to dress normal and blend in, since his ex-wife's lawyers were just waiting to call our family unstable. So instead of wearing the badge I'd carried for 18 years, I looked like an ordinary court observer. I left the bathroom and slipped into the gallery, 3 rows behind James and his attorney. The courtroom was crowded, as they always are when custody battles among the wealthy involve whispers of hidden offshore accounts. My sister-in-law, Monica, slid in beside me, her Chanel perfume arriving before she did. "Thank God you finally dressed properly," she muttered. "James was terrified you'd show up in that uniform and make us look like some blue-collar family." I'd heard versions of that remark for nearly 2 decades. My family, real estate moguls and investment bankers, never knew what to do with me. When I announced at 24 that I was joining federal law enforcement, my father suggested something more appropriate, like paralegal work or court reporting. "At least you're not carrying that ridiculous gun," Monica added loudly enough for others to hear. James said to leave all the law enforcement cosplay at home. That word, cosplay, landed like a slap. 18 years of chasing fugitives, serving high-risk warrants, protecting federal judges, and running complex investigations reduced to dress up by people whose hardest choice was between a BMW or a Mercedes. "Mom always said Vanessa would grow out of this phase," Monica whispered to a friend across the aisle. "Playing cops and robbers at 43. Some women just never grow up." I forced myself to tune her out and focused on the trial. James's lawyer began presenting evidence of his ex-wife's hidden fortune. Patricia had shuffled millions through shell companies, offshore accounts, and property bought under aliases. It was a sophisticated scheme, the kind that usually called for federal involvement. "The defendant has concealed nearly $12 million, the lawyer stated. "We have records of wire transfers to Cayman accounts, purchases made under false corporations, and real estate bought under assumed names." Patricia sat at the defense table, calm and polished. Her attorneys were the type who could make evidence disappear and convince witnesses to change their stories. Every move James's legal team made, she was already a step ahead. "Unfortunately, Your Honor," James's lawyer admitted, "much of this trail crosses into federal territory. International transfers, banking regulations, resources beyond our reach." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the email I'd been waiting on all week. Subject line, Logan investigation, case closed. I'd been working her case for 8 months. What began as a routine financial crimes probe had unraveled into something far bigger. Behind me, Monica was still entertaining her friends. "Vanessa thinks she's some hotshot detective, but all she does is serve papers and stand around courthouses looking official. Basically a glorified process server." "Doesn't she carry a gun?" someone asked. "Oh, please," Monica scoffed. "They hand those out to everyone to make them feel important. I doubt she's ever even fired it. She just exaggerates to make herself sound dramatic." Up front, the judge pressed James's lawyer about further evidence. Patricia leaned toward her attorney, smirking as if she knew she had already won. She didn't realize everything she'd hidden was about to surface. I rose quietly and walked toward the bench. James's lawyer looked startled. We'd never met, and I wasn't supposed to be part of this hearing. "Excuse me, Your Honor," I said clearly, my voice echoing across the room. "I believe I can help clarify the asset situation." The judge frowned. "Ma'am, this is a closed hearing. Please return to your seat." "Your Honor, my name is Deputy U.S. Marshal Vanessa Logan, lead investigator on a federal case tied to the defendant's financial activities." The room went silent. I felt James's stare burning into my back and heard Monica's sharp breath catch. Patricia's lawyer shot to his feet, objecting, but the judge raised his hand. "You're a deputy marshal?" he asked. I reached into my blazer, produced my credentials, and handed them to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge. Yes, Your Honor. Badge 1247, assigned to the Financial Crimes Task Force. Your Honor, this is highly irregular, Patricia's lawyer argued, but the confidence was draining from his voice. The judge studied my badge, then looked up. Deputy Logan, you're investigating the defendant? Yes, sir. For 8 months, I've been leading a multi-agency investigation into an international money laundering operation designed to hide assets and evade taxes. Patricia Logan is our primary subject. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Monica's voice cut through the noise. That's impossible. She's just, The investigation is complete, Your Honor, I continued firmly. We've traced every asset, documented every fraudulent transfer, and identified every account. With the court's permission, I can present the full financial record, evidence that will be critical to these custody proceedings. Your Honor, I replied, we've uncovered $17.3 million in hidden assets. The defendant funneled the money through 14 different shell companies across 6 countries. We've traced every transfer, every account, and each attempt to conceal the funds from both federal tax authorities and this very court. Patricia's face drained of color. Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently, but she sat frozen, unable to react. Your Honor, I continued, pulling a thick folder from my briefcase. Inside this file is a full report of every concealed asset, ready for immediate seizure by federal authorities. I also hold arrest warrants for charges of money laundering, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. The judge's eyes widened. You have arrest warrants? Yes, sir, I answered. Federal warrants, signed this morning. My plan was to serve them once this hearing was over. But since it directly affects these custody proceedings, I gestured toward James, I believe the court should be informed of the defendant's full activities. This is outrageous, Patricia's attorney shouted. We were given no notice of any federal investigation. I turned to him with the same look I reserve for fugitives who think they can argue their way out of cuffs. That's not how investigations work, counselor. We don't announce them in advance. The judge studied my credentials again. Deputy Logan, you're telling me you've been investigating the defendant in this custody case for 8 months? Yes, Your Honor. Though to clarify, I didn't even know she was tied to a custody dispute until this week. Our inquiry started when the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network flagged her transactions. Hiding these assets from family court is just an additional violation we'll be addressing. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Behind me, the gallery had fallen silent. James stared at me as though seeing me for the first time. Your Honor, I pressed on. Federal law requires that all assets tied to money laundering be seized immediately. That includes properties, accounts, and investments Mrs. Logan has tried to conceal from this case. I can present the full accounting right now. Patricia finally broke her silence. This is entrapment. My sister-in-law is making this up, just to help her brother. I looked her in the eye. Ma'am, I've never discussed this case with my brother. Federal investigations don't operate that way. In fact, because of my relation, I had to secure special authorization from the U.S. Attorney's Office to continue as lead investigator. The judge looked between us. You're related to the plaintiff? Yes, Your Honor. James Logan is my brother. When I realized the connection, I immediately disclosed it to my supervisors and the Department of Justice. Since the investigation was already underway and involves federal crimes far beyond this custody matter, they allowed me to remain as lead agent under strict oversight. What kind of oversight? The judge asked. I pulled another folder from my case. Comprehensive oversight, Your Honor. Every stage of this case has been reviewed and approved by the U.S. Attorney, the Treasury Department, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I have authorization letters here if you'd like to examine them. Patricia's lawyer shuffled through his papers, clearly rattled. Your Honor, we need more time to review these allegations. These aren't allegations, I corrected evenly. These are proven federal crimes, backed by 18 months of evidence. The investigation is complete. Warrants are issued. And as we speak, the assets are already being seized. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, then smiled. That would be confirmation from the FBI. The seizures have begun. The courtroom exploded. Patricia screamed at her attorney. James twisted in his seat, trying to look at me. The gallery erupted into confused chatter. The judge slammed his gavel, demanding order. The judge finally spoke once the room settled. "Deputy Logan," he said evenly, "I assume the defendant will be taken into custody today?" "Yes, Your Honor," I answered, though I had hoped to let these proceedings finish first, considering the impact on the child custody matter. "How thoughtful," the judge replied with a dry edge. "And I take it you've documented the concealed assets?" I opened the folder in my hands and began reading aloud. "Mrs. Logan has $2.3 million hidden in a Cayman Islands account under the name Triton Holdings. She also owns a property in Costa Rica valued at $1.8 million, purchased through Meridian Investments. In addition, there are accounts in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the British Virgin Islands, totaling $8.7 million. On top of that, she acquired $4.2 million worth of gold bullion, currently stored in a private Delaware vault under Pacific Trust Holdings." With every asset I listed, Patricia seemed to sink lower in her chair. "The total concealed funds amount to $17.3 million, Your Honor," I continued. "All of it falls under federal forfeiture. But since this is a family court, it must also be factored into the marital property division." For the first time, I turned my eyes to James. It should also be noted that these funds were deliberately hidden to avoid both federal taxation and divorce settlements. The judge looked sharply at James's attorney. "Counselor, I imagine this drastically changes your asset calculations?" James's lawyer stammered, "Yes, Your Honor." "Significantly." Then the judge faced Patricia. "Mrs. Logan, would you like to respond to these accusations before I adjourn, pending your federal arrest?" Her attorney tugged at her arm, trying to lead her away, but Patricia wrenched free. "This is a setup," she snapped. "She's no federal agent. She's just a security guard covering for her brother." I calmly lifted my radio and keyed the mic. "This is Deputy Logan, badge 1247. I need backup in courtroom 6A for arrest and transport of a federal fugitive." The radio crackled back instantly. "Copy, Deputy Logan. Units are staged outside. Transport en route." Within moments, 2 deputy marshals in tactical gear strode into the courtroom. I knew them well, Tom Martinez and Sarah Chun, my longtime partners. "Deputy Logan," Tom said formally with a nod. "Ready for transport?" "The subject is Patricia Logan," I confirmed. "Federal warrants include money laundering, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice." I handed him the folder. "Rights already read?" Tom asked. "Not yet." I turned to Patricia. "Mrs. Logan, you have the right to remain silent." I delivered the Miranda warning while every eye in the courtroom stayed, fixed on me. As soon as I finished, Tom and Sarah stepped forward with the cuffs. "Wait," the judge interrupted. "Deputy Logan, for the record, are you in fact a sworn U.S. Marshal?" "Yes, Your Honor. 18 years of service. Currently with the Financial Crimes Task Force, Southern District of New York." This investigation has followed every federal guideline, with disclosures and supervisory approval on file. Satisfied, the judge gave a nod. "Tom," and Sarah led Patricia toward the exit. She glared at me as they passed. "Your family will turn on you for this," she hissed. I held her stare. "My family will be just fine, Mrs. Logan. You, however, are staring down 15 to 20 years in federal prison." Once she was taken out, the judge addressed the room. "In light of these revelations, full custody is awarded to the plaintiff, effective immediately. The $17.3 million in assets will be divided according to New York State marital property laws, pending federal forfeiture." He tapped his gavel. "Court is adjourned." As people shuffled out, I gathered my papers. James appeared at my side, his face pale but filled with something new, respect. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "I had no idea." "No one did," I replied. "That was the point." 18 years, he whispered. 18 years of this? I nodded. 18 years of serving warrants, tracking financial crimes, and bringing fugitives to justice. Monica came up to us, her face drained of color. "Vanessa, we thought you were just a security guard, a process server, playing cops and robbers," she said. "I know what you imagined." James looked at me, as if he were seeing me for the very first time. The things we said, God, Vanessa, the things we've said about your job over the years. You mean the things you said about my cosplay and my ridiculous costume, and how I needed to grow up and get a real job? I shot back, hefting my briefcase. Yeah, I remember all of it. So why never correct us? Why didn't you tell the truth about what you do? I glanced between them, my brother, who'd begged me to dress down so I wouldn't embarrass him, and my sister-in-law, who'd spent years cracking jokes about my pretend law enforcement career. Because it didn't matter what you thought, I said plainly. My work speaks for itself. Today, it spoke pretty loudly. $17 million? James' voice was a whisper. You found all of that? I found it, along with proof of federal crimes Patricia thought she'd hidden well enough to escape. I started toward the exit. Your son will be taken care of. The hidden assets will be recovered. Justice will be done. That's what matters. Vanessa, wait, James called after me. Can we talk? I mean, really talk. I feel like I don't know you at all. I stopped and turned back. You don't know me, James. You've spent 18 years assuming things about my life instead of asking. You dismissed my career as dress-up games while I was tracking some of the country's most dangerous fugitives. We were idiots, Monica said softly. Complete idiots. Yes, you were. But that's not my problem to fix. My phone buzzed, another message, so I pulled it out. I have to go. Patricia's arrest will generate paperwork that'll keep me tied up for months. Will you come to dinner this weekend? James asked. I want to hear about what you actually do. What your life is really like. I mulled the invitation while reading a text from my supervisor. Patricia's co-conspirators in 2 other states had also been arrested. Maybe I said it last, but if I come, I'm wearing my uniform. And if anyone makes one more comment about costumes or cosplay or security guard work, I'll arrest them for interfering with a federal officer. James actually smiled. Deal. As I left the courthouse, I heard Monica behind me. She's been catching criminals for 18 years. Real criminals with real guns. The security guard at the metal detector, an actual security guard, gave me a respectful nod as I passed. Have a good day, Deputy Logan. Thank you. Officer Martinez, I returned, reading his name tag. You too. Outside, Tom and Sarah were loading Patricia into the federal transport van. Tom came over as I reached my car. Hell of a way to serve a warrant, he said with a grin. Most people don't get arrested at their own custody, hearing by their brother's sister. Most people don't commit federal crimes to hide assets from family court, I replied. Besides, it was efficient. 2 birds, 1 stone. Your family seems surprised by your day job, he said. I unlocked the car. My family seems surprised by a lot of things. They'll adjust. That weekend, I did go to dinner at James' house in full deputy marshal uniform, badge, gun, tactical vest and all. When I walked in, my 8-year-old nephew looked up from his video game and said, Wow, Aunt Vanessa, you look like a real cop. That's because I am a real cop, buddy. James' newfound understanding turned into genuine curiosity about my work, though I could only discuss the unclassified parts. Monica spent the evening apologizing and asking the questions she should have asked 18 years ago. But the real moment came when my nephew asked, Aunt Vanessa, did you really arrest my mom? I answered gently I did. Your mom broke serious laws, and it's my job to make sure people who break laws face consequences. But that doesn't change the fact that she loves you. And it doesn't mean you're in trouble. Are you going to arrest Dad too? He wanted to know. Your dad didn't break the law, I said. He just needed help finding things hidden from him. That's part of my job too, helping people find the truth. Later, as I was leaving, James walked me to my car. Vanessa, I know I can never take back the things we said. No, you can't. But I want you to know I'm proud of you. I'm proud to be your brother, and I'm sorry it took me this long to see how wrong I was. I started the engine. James laughed. Yeah, next time someone needs federal crimes investigated, you know who to call. I'll keep that in mind. 6 months later, Patricia pleaded guilty to all charges and was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The recovered assets were placed into a trust for my nephew, managed by a court-appointed guardian. James received full custody and a new appreciation for what I actually do. The family joke stopped altogether. At the next family gathering, James introduced me to his business partners as my sister, Deputy U.S. Marshal Vanessa Logan. She's the one who recovered $17 million in hidden assets and arrested a federal fugitive last year. But the real win wasn't in their recognition. It was in realizing I no longer cared whether they acknowledged it. I'd built a career that mattered, pursued justice that made a difference, and served my country with honor for 18 years. Their opinions of my costume never changed the weight of my badge or the importance of my work. Now that they finally understood, their respect was pleasant, but not required. Some revenge is served cold. Some revenge comes with federal warrants and handcuffs.